Redecorating Center, and a good morning to you. I'm Art Lewis, back in the saddle again after a couple of weeks off, and went out to California and see how the West Coast lives. And after I saw the price of gas at $5.29 a gallon, I said, I'm glad I don't live there. Anyway, good morning to you. Welcome back. We have a busy morning later on after the 10 o'clock news, and it's going to be interesting to see how long we have him. Rick Mixter is going to be with us to talk about the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald. He, however, is at an airport in Duluth, where yesterday he was put on a 12-hour delay, and today he has a flight scheduled, but he's not sure what time it's going to go. So we will start out at 10 o'clock talking to him for as long as we have him. And if we have to shorten that interview, then we'll do open phones on the shutdown of the government. And at 11 o'clock, we'll learn about Right at Home on Focus. But for this hour, we're going to be talking about an organization we've chatted with before and done a number of things with. That is the Children's Grief Center. Couple of guests with us. The guy behind it to start with, Chris Sabourin. Chris, good morning.
Good morning, Art.
Good to see you. And with him is the program director for the organization, and she is Gabby Gauthier. Good morning, Gabby.
Good morning.
Nice to have you with us this morning.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so before we get into some of the nitty-gritty of what you have going on and the event you have coming up, as we do every time, an overview of the Children's Grief Center and how it came about and why it came about.
Yeah, I can do it, sure.
Throw her under the bus right away.
I have seniority. I have a couple years on them, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, do you
So,
really? Okay.
I've been with us for about 7, going on 8 years. So the organization started, kind of birthed out of Tony and Trish House. They approached our former executive director, our founder, Camille Nitschke, and they saw the need for children's programming in the grief world, and they didn't really have the means to do so, but thought Camille would be the perfect fit to start something like that. And she was the perfect fit. Had she experienced it, or? Yeah. So
okay.
So she's an amazing person, and she had just lost her father and her sister pretty close together. And she had a background in massage therapy, so she was able to see how grief manifests in your body as you get older and as you age. So she kind of sat with it and decided that she was going to start it up.
That I never thought of that. You said grief manifests itself in your body.
Oh, yeah.
I would think in my mind, but I wouldn't think in my body. But yet it has impact.
Oh, yeah. So when you shove your grief down for so long and don't address it, it can go into your back and your heart and when a kid gets sent home from school and they're nervous, they might say, oh, my belly hurts. But they don't really connect the two, and that goes all the way up into adulthood.
Interesting. Wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah.
So the organization is what, about 8 years old then?
It's actually 10 years.
10 years old?
11 this year.
Now, yeah.
We
11
celebrated
this year?
10 last year, yeah.
And you got involved, Chris, how?
Camille was announced her retirement, and the position became open. And my previous background was in teaching and school administration, and learned that I had enough service credit in to retire. So I started looking, and I always say this job found me, and I decided to pursue it. And here I am now, 3.5 years in. And took everything that I love about teaching and working with kids and seeing them thrive, and I get to do that all the time now, side by side with people like Gabby and her expertise. It's an amazing place to be.
So let's take a look at the protocols. Mm-hmm. A youngster loses a loved one, mother, father, sibling, whatever. What happens? What do you provide to that youngster?
So we take on kids ages 4 to 18 in our program. That being said, we get calls for all ages. We get a lot of referrals from funeral homes, from schools, from hospitals, and at this point, since we've been around for so long, typically word of mouth or a family. So when they call, I get them set up, registered for groups. They share a little bit of their story, and I assess whether or not they're ready for a group format. Sometimes it might be too fresh, or they might have some trauma mixed in, so I suggest either individual therapy along with us or instead of to start with. But that's probably how the intake process goes.
Do you have the therapists?
I'm a therapist. I'm a licensed counselor, and then my coworker Lexi Moulton is a limited license MSW.
So you guys do the initial one-on-ones if they're needed.
I typically refer out for long-term individual counseling, but I do a little bit of an assessment during the intake to kind of judge if they need that.
And so a youngster finds themselves in that position of needing that grief counseling.
Mm-hmm.
How long does it last? Or is that open-ended?
I would say it's open-ended. Some of our kids we've had for 5 or 6 years in the program. Their grief changes with them as they get older, and I've had kids come in, a couple weeks after their person has died, or I've had a child who was 13 and her mom died when she was 6 months old. So she had lived all of her life without her, and she's going through teenage years without her. So grief doesn't really have a timeline, so we don't either.
There's an old saying, time heals all. I don't believe it, never have believed it.
Yeah.
It may heal some, but not all.
I think time makes it a little easier to carry, but I don't think it necessarily heals all.
I recognize that. My wife passed almost 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I recognized the stages as I went through them.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what it was like in the early days, mid, late, and how you feel in the process.
Yeah.
Because in truth, I never want to get over it.
Right.
I always want that memory.
Mm-hmm.
But you also realize at some point life goes on, and you can do that as an adult. Sometimes it's a little more difficult as a child, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And those stages of grief come and go. It's not a linear process. You can feel anger at any point, and you can feel depression at any point, and you can hit some of those stages twice. And
it depends on your age too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I never hit the anger stage. I actually my stage, I would call it gratitude. Rather than grieve over the loss, which I did, obviously. But I was grateful for the 57 years I had.
Yeah.
And that's what I focused on. But we all process differently, don't we? And children are no different, are they?
No, they're not. We all process things a little differently, and we see it. I tell our volunteers, because we're really powerhoused by volunteers, that if they have a similar story, that like we have a child that came in and their sister died, and we have a volunteer whose sister died around the same age, I'm like, you have to be really careful not to project your grief story onto that child, because even though you went through a very similar situation, it's not the same. Everything's a little different.
Well, every one of us is different.
Absolutely.
We're all unique individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beauty of it. We're going to take a break, come back. We'll talk about funding for the organization and events. All of that coming up here on the Art Lewis Show on this, I was going to say beautiful Monday morning. Well, it is. It's pretty. I'll give you that. I was telling them earlier I came through Montana on the train, and the snow was pretty heavy out there. And I'm saying, I'm glad I'm going to get home to 50-degree weather. Gee, look what I found when I got here. Anyway, let me take a moment here to talk about my good friends at McDonald Ford and Winter Tires and Quick Lane Freeland, which is part of McDonald Ford, where you can buy any kind of tire for just $5 over cost. But when I wrote this, it said, Michigan's winter is not far away. Look outside, folks. Michigan winter is here. And, of course, the snow, ice, things of that nature bring driving challenges, and you want a margin of safety. And you can get that with winter tires, because winter tires actually are different. Here's John from Quick Lane Freeland to tell you about it.
Hello, Art. Yes, winter tires are made with a pliable rubber compound that includes silica to stay flexible and maintain grip in freezing temperatures. Unlike harder all-season tires, which stiffen and lose traction in the cold, this flexible compound allows the tire to better conform to the road surface, providing superior grip and traction on snow and ice to keep you safe.
Thanks, John. Stop at the Quick Lane Freeland today for a tire checkup. Also have your cooling system checked for the winter, because, the cold weather, I was going to say it's ahead, it's here. Also, remember, McDonald Ford has all the new Ford models waiting for you and a huge range of quality pre-owned vehicles. Quick Lane and McDonald Ford, two names standing ready to serve all of your automotive needs. And don't forget, all those tires, just $5 over cost.
Fire up the
Hi, we're back with you in studio with me. From the Children's Grief Center, we have its head man. He is Chris Severin. And Gabby Gauthier is with us. She is the program director for the organization and been there longer than Chris.
That's right.
All right, so let's talk about some of the nitty-gritty, because like every organization, you need two good things. You need good finances, and you need a good group of volunteers. Where do you want to start?
100%. Financial. Why not?
I figured that. Nothing else happens without it. So.
There you go. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, Children's Grief Center, we fund everything with grant writing, fundraising, sponsorships, and donations. We're proud to say that at this time we don't charge our families for our services. We also have a daytime school program that at this time we
That's
we
in the
don't
schools.
charge that. That is in the schools. Yeah. Yep,
And
absolutely.
you don't get, you write grants, but you don't get government funding per se, do you?
That's correct. We do not get any government or state funding for our programs. So it's we're busy trying to navigate the financial component. I've had several conversations with other executive directors of local nonprofits, and everybody's talking about it, trying to find solutions. With the situation with federal money and so on, it can get hard for those organizations, and so we're all trying to brainstorm and figure out how to continue our service to, specifically with Children's Grief Center, continue our service as best as we can, with the funding that we have and the funding we can go find.
And so that funding, how much of it comes from just public support?
Quite a bit, actually. I would say at least about half of it comes from public support. We have some very generous donors that give to us once a year. Happy to say that we have restarted a recurring giving program just a couple months ago called Strands of Hope Community. And we have, at its launch, we had about 3 donors say, I would love to be able to do that. And now we're up to 8, which is really helpful for us because it's much, I would say, more manageable when we have donations coming in on a monthly basis rather than on an annual basis, because we can plan for it. We can plan for programming a little bit easier. And so that recurring giving program we're hoping to grow, hoping to publicize and share.
And at what
with more
level do
people.
you want someone to join?
Any level, quite frankly. And there's an option in that community to donate whatever you want. But there's also the basic levels of $25 a month, $50, all the way up to, $1,000. My grand goal would be, as I have on the campaign on the website, is $100,000, and that's continuing donations. That kind of money would provide us opportunities to continue expanding, because that's really, as you heard Gabby mention earlier, we've got the program, we've got the evening program, we've got the daytime program, but we're getting calls all the time for our services, and our Midland program specifically is really expanding and starting to
Which
burst at the seams,
begs the
I would say.
question, what area do you cover?
So we have our evening program in Midland, Bay, and Saginaw counties. So in Midland, we have our evening program at our home office, which is close to Costco. In Bay County, we rent space from Unity of Bay City, and Unity of Bay City is a church, but we are not a faith-based organization. We rent space from them. Their space works really great for us because it's an old elementary school, so there's lots of room, and they're very supportive of our organization as well. In Saginaw County, we rent space from the Mid-Michigan Children's Museum. Again,
really?
Yes.
Well, that's a great place to do that. I would
100%.
It's amazing.
And they've been great partners with us for several years. And they allow us the use of the entire space just like Unity does. And so, with our partners who are helping us with rent costs and so on, that's where we have our program. But Art, I want to mention that we have families driving as far north as Harrison and Beaverton and way out in the Thumb area, out by Harbor Beach, I believe it is, and as far south as Flint, and as far west as, I think, Midland County, and maybe a little bit into Isabella County. So we've got the Great Lakes Bay region and beyond.
So in round numbers, how many youngsters are you serving at a time?
Well, the numbers that we were looking at on our evening rosters, we have about 160, 170 kids on our evening rosters. And when I first started 3 years ago, that number was 50 along our 3 sites. Now, Gabby mentioned our colleague Lexi Moulton, who's our school grief support specialist, and she focuses just on the schools. When I first started, day one, I remember somewhere around 15 to 20 schools that we were serving. Lexi last year traveled to 45 school buildings and ran 55 daytime school grief support programs. And that's
so
like
that
I mentioned,
number is over and above your nighttime.
Yeah,
youngsters
that's
that you serve.
Correct. And that's approximately 600 kids.
Oh, wow.
In the school alone, those 55 programs, it's on average about 10 kids per group. So, you look at 550, 600 kids. And so do the math, that's 760 kids serviced, worked with in peer support groups and getting a chance to share their story just over the last program year. And we're trending in that same direction, if not more, this year.
So, Gabby, you mentioned the other word, volunteers.
Yes.
How many do you have, and what do they do?
How many do I have? It's interesting because a lot of my volunteer base in the most recent years have been students at Saginaw Valley and other universities, gaining hours towards social work degrees, or they need volunteer hours for clubs, and that has been amazing, but that does mean there's a high turnover rate once they graduate. I do have a really solid set of volunteers who have been with us for a few years. We need about 9 to 10, probably I would say safely 10 to run a group evening, but that's a little bit strapped. So probably
at every group evening you need that many?
Yeah, 10 volunteers,
really?
Because so we separate into age groups every time. So each age group needs at least 2 volunteers. But if you have a group of 10 4 to 6 year olds, you want more volunteers in there than just 2.
So what do they do? I mean, are they trained in grief counseling at all?
So I wouldn't say trained in grief counseling, but they take an extensive volunteer training through us. There's 2 types of volunteers. The one is the facilitator training, which takes place on a full day on a Saturday. We meet all day. We go over, things about children's grief and the grief in general. We talk about children's development. We talk a lot about play and how to play with kids, because play is the language of children, so we want to learn how to speak their language. And then we also kind of go through their own grief story, so they are not stirred up potentially by someone else's story. A lot of our volunteers want to volunteer with us because they have experienced personal grief and they want to give back and teach kids on how to build these coping skills and learn all of this. So as of right now, I would say we have about 40 to 50 volunteers, but we always need more because that's throughout all the sites.
And if somebody wants to volunteer, how do they do that?
They can go to the website and fill out a form. So there's a little volunteer tab, and you can do that. Or you can call our office, and I would love to talk about setting them up with training. Or we do a little brief grief group support training where they can come and start after a background check and a little bit of training.
And again, that website?
childrensgriefglbr.org.
All right, we're going to take a break and be back with more. We'll talk about events and things like that when we return here on the Art Lewis Show.
This Veterans Day, Amigo
Hi, we're back with you. In studio, Chris Sabrin heads up the Children's Grief Center. Gabby Gauthier, who is the program director. So let's talk about events, because you do them,
We do.
and it's a way to raise money.
That's
So-
correct. Yep.
What's happening these days?
Well, the most, or I guess the event that's coming up the fastest is actually happening next week. It's our Hearts of Hope luncheons, and we're taking a little bit of a different twist with one of them this year. We're actually doing a breakfast in our Saginaw area. So let me back up a step. We work to do these luncheons in each one of our program areas, so Midland Bay and Saginaw County. Last year, we tried something a little bit different where we tried to have one luncheon in a centralized location. We had that at Saginaw Valley State University, and it was a great event. It worked out wonderfully. We had some students there, and we made lots of university connections. Like Gabby said, Saginaw Valley State University is a great partner for us. We get several interns from them. We get volunteers who come over and help us with our heart making, heart pins, and so on. But we learned that we could reach more people if we went back to having our luncheons in each one of our service areas. Yeah. So on Tuesday, November 18th, we have our Midland luncheon at the Great Hall. On Wednesday, November 19th,
Oh, stop. Let's do one at a time.
Sorry, one at a time.
Cost?
Free. No cost.
Wait a
No
minute.
cost.
I
Please.
thought we were going to talk about a fundraiser.
we are. That's exactly right. So historically, our Hearts of Hope luncheons have been free to register, and register. We'll have a lunch there ready for you. And our program, we have some of our kids, we have some of our families come and share their stories. We also have some updates of the Children's Grief Center and what's happened over the last program year. We also give the audience a chance to experience our candle lighting ceremony, and also get a chance to talk to each other at their tables. And just like several other fundraising luncheons or breakfasts, there is a donation ask at the end of the event. So there's always an opportunity to donate, and that's really where the fundraising comes in. We want the audience to know our story. We want the audience to hear from some of our folks who are willing to tell their grief stories, but also how the Grief Center has fit into that grief story and how we've helped them along their grief journey.
So this one is the 18th. This is Midlands at the Great Hall at noon, right?
That's correct.
Okay, then what?
And then the next day, Wednesday, November 19th, we're going to do ours in Saginaw at the Horizons Conference Center, but that's a breakfast. And so that's going to start at 7:30 in the morning. Each one of these events lasts an hour because we want to respect everybody's time. We know several people are either needing to get to work from the breakfast perspective or from the lunch perspective. We work really hard to keep it to 60 minutes. The program will be similar for each one of these events. However, each of the programs will have people from each one of those groups, local areas. Yeah, exactly.
And then Bay would be next?
The Bay would be next on Thursday, November 20th. That's back to the lunchtime at 12 p.m., and that's at the Doubletree downtown.
And these events will introduce people to the Children's Grief Center if they're not aware of it, right?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And in a couple different ways. So like I mentioned, we have our stories that will be told at the podium. We also will have our interns there who have been pretty well versed now since they've been with us for a while to talk to people and answer questions. We'll have our outreach table there so people can see the materials that we use, specifically books that we use during group to tell stories and to get kids to, be more connected with their grief and characters in the story and see themselves in the stories. And we have people who have come to our luncheons before who also are willing to talk at the tables and share their stories of the Grief Center. So by the time you walk out of our luncheons or this particular breakfast situation in Saginaw, our goal is that you do know the story and that you know we exist and support us as well.
It's safe to assume everyone at some point in their life is going to have grief.
Mm-hmm.
Can't escape it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's universal. It's universal. All right, we're going to take our last break and then come back, talk more with our guests about the Children's Grief Center. We'll remind you of the events again, tell you about some of the others coming up during the year, all ahead.
November isn't complete without
All right, we're back with you in studio. We have Gabby Gauthier. She is the program director for Children's Grief Center, and it's headman Chris Saberin with us this morning. And again, they have their luncheons coming up the 18th, 19th, and 20th. 18th in Midland, and 19th a breakfast in Saginaw, 20th back to lunch in Bay City. Remind everybody again how they can register for those lunches. Do they need to register for those lunches?
Yes, please. And that's a really important point because we have to have our numbers turned in so that we have an accurate count. You know, like I mentioned before, it's free to register. And so because we do pay for those meals, the closer we can get, the better off we'll be financially for the event. It ends up that we've been asking everybody to register by today because our numbers are due later this week. But if we can have the registrations in today or tomorrow, that would be fantastic. Simply go to our website, childrensgriefglbr.org, and you'll see a link at the top of the page to be able to register.
And you said no more than an hour?
That's correct. No more than an hour. Just 60 minutes of your time. Come hear our story and support us at the very end.
I'd like to add something, if you don't mind.
Help yourself.
Yeah, we as we've been promoting this, we've got a little bit of feedback of like, I don't want to listen to children's grief stories and then go back to work. Like, what a bummer. And I definitely hear that, but I do, like you had said, grief is universal and we all experience that at some point. And it's such an honor to hear everyone's stories. And I want to say, like, especially like with our volunteers as well, you leave feeling like your cup is full versus feeling kind of bummed out for the day, I would say. I feel like it's so inspiring and you do leave feeling fulfilled. And
the old saying there, but the grace of God go I, you know. It is, you know, it's one of those, nobody likes to talk about it.
Right.
But it's there. You can't ignore it. It's there. It's going to face you someday. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the more you know about it, the better off you are when you support it.
Absolutely.
And that's the key, really.
Yeah.
Getting people to understand the need. And solution's a bad word because you don't really solve the problem. You mitigate the problem.
Right.
Really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Chris, some of the other events you do during the year?
So our signature event is our 5K at MBS International Airport.
Literally, folks, you walk and run the runway.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
one
you
of
do.
them, anyway.
What part? Yeah, one of them. Yeah. Thanks to James Kanders. He's an amazing partner out at MBS International. We will be in our 4th year now, I think, out there, and the event continues to grow. Last year we had, I think, just shy of 500 runners, and we're hoping to target 6 and north of 600 if we can this year. We work really hard to make that a family festival type of event. Gabby works really hard on a kids zone, so there's lots of crafts and activities for kids to do. In addition to the 5K run walk that happens, like you mentioned, literally on the runways and taxiways, outside of that secure space, we also have a kids color run. So the kids wear their white shirts, and then we've got volunteers out there getting them with the colored powder, and they come off just all colorful and happy and so on.
You mentioned an amazing thing, too. It is a secure space. You're actually running inside the airport property on the
Yep.
field.
Yeah.
And TSA has set down some ground rules as to how it's done and everything. You don't have to go through a
100%.
TSA inspection.
No.
You don't have
No.
to do that.
No.
But it is supervised
That is
continually.
correct. Continually supervised.